Welcome and thank you all for joining us for this Art in the Libraries virtual program. We're excited to present this along with Women of Appalachia. I'm Sally Brown, Exhibits Coordinator for WVU Libraries and lead curator of Undefeated, Canvassing the Politics Around Voter Suppression Since Women's Suffrage. As a reminder, this session is being recorded and will be documented on the library's website for public viewing. We encourage you to use your speaker viewing on Zoom. We also welcome your cheers in the chat box, though we will not have time for questions. We will post links, and some artists have already posted some links to find out more about the writers. We will also post a survey link at the end to get your feedback on this session. I am honored to turn this over to Kari Gunter-Seymour. Kari Gunter-Seymour is the founder and executive director of the Women of Appalachia Project and editor of the Women of Appalachia Project anthology series, Women Speak, Volumes 1 through 6. Her award-winning poetry is titled A Place So Deep Inside America It Can't Be Seen by Sheila Gig Editions 2020. Her poems appear in numerous journals and publications, including Verse Virtual, Rattle, and Main Street Rag. She is a 9th generation Appalachian, a pushcart and Best of the Net nominee, a poetry workshop instructor, the 2020 Ohio Poet of the Year and Poet Laureate of Ohio. Welcome, Kari.
Oh my goodness, Sally, thank you for that very kind introduction. We are so excited to be here this year. This is the first of our seasonal events. We've been at this 12 years, as you can see from the video. And after today, I'm going to be adding even more faces to that video because we have many new people this year, which we're very excited about. Women of Appalachia Project is very honored to be here today as the guests of West Virginia Morgantown Libraries, along with support from the Women's Resource Center, WVU LGBTQ+ Center, and the Center for Women and Gender Studies. This could not have happened without Sally Brown, who is the Exhibits and Program Coordinator for West Virginia University Libraries, and Beth Torin, who's interdisciplinary culture and film studies librarian, but today is serving as our goddess of technical support, as she has already done. Yes, big hand for both of them. As I mentioned, this is our 12th season, and this is our 4th with West Virginia University Libraries. And we're so grateful for this. For their continued and unflinching support, and not even a pandemic could hold these two women down, Sally and Beth. And so we are very grateful to them for that. And a pandemic isn't going to hold any of us down either. Today we have 22 marvelous readers from Ohio, West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, and one of our trailing participants is here all the way from California. And since this is our first reading this season, I might have missed a couple states, so I'm sorry if I did. And I'm sure others as they go along will make us aware of that. As director, when I'm asked to describe the Women of Appalachia Project, this is what I say. The mission of WOAP is to encourage, enrich, and empower Appalachian female artists and our communities through live and published presentations of spoken word and fine art. The success of this organization is based on the work of every single woman who does, has, or will someday take part, whether as a participant, volunteer, partner, or supporter. We are a sisterhood, all for one, one for all, working toward the same goal, to lift up Appalachia and showcase it in all its magnificent glory, as opposed to some other writers who we won't name today that like to depict Appalachia as somewhere that you need to escape from. We do not feel that way. We are here to stay and make it better and stronger. We are a Prindy Award winner, a Weatherford Award winner, state and municipal poet laureates, Pushcart Prize winners, Best of the Net nominees, and authors of acclaimed books. Our Facebook page has 37,000 friends from all over the world. This year's Women Speak anthology is now available for pre-sale from our amazing publisher, Haley Mitchell-Hagen. She's the owner-operator of Sheila Gig Editions, which is a totally female-run small press. I do have a little photograph of the cover This is a sneak peek of the cover, and I think Kaylee even has an early copy of the proof, and she can probably hold that up as well. And the anthology sells for $18, and there is free shipping. And we anticipate it going out late October, early November. So that's just in time for the gift giving season. So keep that in mind as a wonderful gift to present to people that you love. So I'm going to start things off today for us, and it's my pleasure to do so. My poem is called Wash Your Hands, Child. It's not a full-on quarantine, but it feels like it. School closings, bars, restaurants, beauty parlors. I've canceled professional commitments and workshops, paid gigs I was counting on. I'm not alone in my regret. We are still tempted to enter the land of touching. I've jammed the cupboards with recommended staples, scold myself hourly for touching my face, have washed my hands to the point of crusty irritation across each knuckle. I know this drill. My Appalachian grandmother, having lived through the Spanish one herself, had one rule about which she was obsessive. Wash up, spit polish immediately upon entering the house. We could talk with our mouths full, shove and taunt, build booby traps on the porch, run amok in the pastures. But before we set foot inside the house, our shoes were off, our hands and faces scrubbed, standing on a step stool in the washroom, the hand pump drawing water fresh from the well. There is a bar of lye soap, a soft wire brush, and a full inspection previous to every meal. She meticulously cleaned every egg, pork chop, celery stalk, jars and cans before prying loose their lids, bleach scoured countertops and porcelain floors, the bottoms of our shoes each night. She always laid a freshly laundered cloth across the table before dishing up victuals, most of which she had grown and preserved herself. We gossiped about how our granny was a little off, constantly complained as we stood in line for that bristled brush, our bellies grumbling nearly as loud as our mouths. Upon her death, we let go of grandmother's ways, barely taking time to rinse our hands, our tangibles, stuffing ourselves on the go. Processed foods served upsized and sugared, licking our mucky fingers between bites. This afternoon, my granddaughter, all 7 years of her, fawn-eyed, tearful, asked me how her tiny hands, unblemished, perfectly formed, could do me harm. Hands that have hardly touched this world, this child, and the slow tail wagging of her dog, standing exactly 6 heel-to-toe paces away outside my screen door. It is my honor to welcome you to Women Speak.
My name is CJ Farnsworth, and I am in Wheeling, West Virginia. Endemic influences on gamma rhythms as noted during the pandemic. Dinner arrives as I'm thinking about Kurt Cobain and cigarettes, and the way Kurt was a small giant, as evidenced by his thrifty professorial cardigan that I'm sure still smells like cigarettes, though I can't confirm it because the sweater is hermetically sealed in plexiglass, as Holden would want it to be. Neither had very involved parents. When the oven buzzes, I'm thinking about LY instead, about my ambivalence toward these 2 letters. How I can't go to the bathroom or breathe late into a quiet night without fretting about these bastards. The same way appropriate parents might fret about their wayward kid, and when I bite into a knuckle of chicken, I recognize how cartilage-like, how sinewy those ly sooks are, how I'm drawn to them precisely because of their subjugation. Ostracized for their anemic persona, it is their sisters and brothers who do the cooking and dig the coal, though families in my neck of the woods are ambivalent about that kind of sequestration too. And when the melamine plate is almost bare, except for what can't be chewed and what's drained, I lay it atop a book bereft of ly, a book titled simply The Brain. Long before I learned Eddie Vedder's head was made into a piñata, and I have to assume it was a Grecian urn gesture and suppressed the natural urge to pummel his papier-mâché face with love via guitar arms, or is it necks? Wouldn't this be a summer porch party game to bash his crepey head until the surprises inside spilled out smoky and deep-throated, so deep as to be oceanic, so deep as to penetrate my ovaries, wherever they are, sweetly, completely, and fluidly? Or maybe more gas or plasma-like, yes, more like those, embedding themselves egg-like. Jenny and me sat on the porch, shaking grass from our hair, and wasn't that fun too, howling at the sun on summer days, Daddy on the tractor tearing up onion grass, Mom carrying boxes smelled like fruit when I didn't know nothing about cultural anthropology or les smoking pantsuits. When Jenny's daddy took us motorcycling round West Virginia serpentine turns, my chest pressed like a ceiling serve, thinking the whole time about a VW van, my one burning eternal 1, 2, 3 wish, then stopping by the Farm Fresh for candy bars, past Bethlehem School where the honeysuckle swallowed up the fence, and Tyrone sitting all alone at home with so many ain't cool cats who some poor fool put bells too tight round their necks. Only thing I reckoned then was it's no one but you has to make your own wreck. And ain't that really, though, how we all connect? So I grabbed up my steno pad and wrote down, I'm sending word 'gainst sadness. Lord, it's summer and sun. Don't let these thoughts fade away.
Hi, I'm El Renee from Columbus, Ohio. My family is from McDowell County, West Virginia, and Southwest Virginia. Genealogical trip to Pulaski, Virginia. The mayfly swarm undulates like the perfect hip roll, mottled bodies plow brown bodies midair. Wings fade as fine gossamer in June sun, buoyed by a buzz too quick to be caught by my eye, which doesn't want to bear the witnessing, how nature persists in getting on with it publicly, life, sex, death in the span of a day. I turn away, overcome by shame. I look through my Ford's cracked glass at white mile markers blurring a black highway. Why does our making always begin in denial? When I find my great-great-grandmother, Frances Houndshell, in census records, branded mulatto and a mother at age 9, I do not wince. I practice numbness, focus only on getting back to the alpha mama who owned her own body, her own name, somewhere off the coast of Ghana or Nigeria, maybe, where her breath, not her sweat, was enough currency. In Virginia, it's common to see dead mayflies skip across pavement like flat rocks tossed side-armed at a stream surface, then lodged in sidewalk cracks among orphan pebbles, sticks and sprigs of grass. I'd rather look at uncountable rows of tobacco leaves which leave me breathless, dizzy even. All those green ears flap like an elephant's hello, hang woody scents heavy through my car vents like next of kin, hugs hugged only at family reunions. In death, female mayfly lips freeze into an O, as if reading a whistle, as if leaving evidence of no, after the males give chase, grab their tiny legs, drag them to the ground after the mount. It happens like this. Whole lives purposed for labor and procreation. Night collects her bounty. By daybreak, bodies pile by the hundreds in windowsills and porch corners, in the middle of a passage, pedestrian stroll between a jail and courthouse. The nice white genealogist at the local library tells me Francis's age must be wrong, an error in reporting. But I know a nymph can be snatched from her skin, molt and molt until she becomes something new, gains wings if only for a brief view of the dust. She will soon call home. The next poem is called Fish Fry. Everything delicious is served on Friday. Jesus should get a do-over for the Last Supper since he missed out on the miracle that is Wonder Bread made paste by purchased cornmeal, skin, sweat, and Crisco, clinging like faith to a mouth's roof, even as the tongue tries to negotiate release, swat freedom for teeth. We know what delay tastes like. We have waited for a check that affords us this feast of fish, golden crisp, and the glow of Black joy. With Luther Vandross praising us for being bad on Aunt Mary's 45 spinner, who would call this dinner? Stovetops bubble with pots of kale and collards, made sides only by smoked ham hock oozing salty fat, their doneness determined by Mama Joyce, who dips her too blessed to be stressed mug in the pot liquor and sips slowly, purses her lush lips and declares, it got more melting to do. Ain't that true for all of us? She snorts every time Lil Russell comes by to kiss her highest cheekbone, his jeans drifting toward hell like he forgot his real tribe. Never mind, no matter, we made it here together, the old timers will say, though they suck their teeth at the sight of his draws, at the sight of a renegger at their bidwist table, at the scent of Dee Dee's too sweet macaroni and cheese. We all fall short of perfection like memory, but Uncle Harold brings us back to where we started, yellow perch, biting their ashen end of a line in Lake Erie's Ohio waters, the place Granddaddy, wearing his old mining boots, taught generations the patience needed to stay fed. Uncle Harold will never bring the tartar sauce Cousin Kathy out east developed a taste for. He will fling back his James Brown slick buffoned crown and howl the sound of hunting hounds choking on coal dust. Remind her she's still a West Virginia holler girl. Remind us travels ain't useful without this knowing.
Hello, everyone. I'm Karen Salyer McElmurray, and I'm originally from Hager Hill, Kentucky. I'm going to be reading today just a couple of sections from a new essay called Hope Against Hope, and it's about my mother's hope chest, which I have to this day. 1. My mother came to her marriage with a wooden trunk she called a hope chest, a gift when she graduated from Prestonsburg High School in Eastern Kentucky. The chest was a classic made by the Lane Company of Alta Vista, Virginia, a serviceable 5 by 2 foot rectangular lidded box made of light and dark red cedar. The Hope chest came to our house in Frankfort, Kentucky, where I lived as a girl. When I looked at the chest, I turned that word, hope, over and over inside my mouth, and it was bittersweet. My father, who loved reading history, lent the Hope chest glamour. Our family came from Germany, Ireland, from the mountains of Spain, he said, and in those places they called Hope chests dowries or glory boxes. Some of those chests were fancy, painted with gold leaf or hand carved. The chests could be tall, double-doored, or small enameled boxes. All were made to hold prized goods a woman saved for marriage. My father loved stories, and he filled the Hope chests he told me about with silks and embroidered nightshirts, gloves made from rabbit fur, velvet slippers. And didn't I know, he exclaimed, there was a Hope chest inside the walls at my granny's house when that new room was added. That Hope chest held letters and deeds, a china-faced doll with wooden teeth, and a petticoat stained with the blood of an unfaithful woman. 2. Some of the first books I remember were the ones my mother told me she'd read in high school, the Sue Barton series. Sue Barton, student nurse, senior nurse, staff nurse. The book showed our heroine, Sue, as she undertakes medical training, then enters her career, all the while meeting, marrying her husband-to-be, Dr. Bill Barry. Along the way, Sue manages to have adventures. She falls down a laundry chute, saves a feverish patient from jumping out of a window while recovering from appendix surgery. Sue is loyal and unrelentingly kind. At one point, she sells her wedding clothes so that an elderly patient who wants to travel can fulfill her dreams. After marriage, she works in a New York City settlement house, then as a visiting rural nurse in the midst of a typhoid epidemic. When we last see Sue, she's returned to work to support her 4 children, while her husband, Bill, is in a sanatorium suffering from TB. I read each of these books cover to cover, less in search of who I might someday become, and more in search of who my mother was and why. Pearlie Lee Baston, my mother, was known as Perky Pearlie in high school, the girl with rolled down bobby socks and a tendency even then toward perfection. She pin curled her hair with precision, ironed her blouses, and pleated her pedal pushers. Her father wouldn't let her date, met her and whoever at the bottom of the hill with a shotgun. But this one boy gave her his class ring to wrap yarn around, so it fit for a while. At 18, she worked as a waitress at a drive-in in Allen, Kentucky, where she met my father just before he joined the Air Force and went overseas. From there, he wrote her letters. Every time I see me another girl, the first thing I do is compare them to you, and you're so far ahead of them, I darn near be ashamed to go out with them. Marriage at 20, child at 22, a trailer in Harlan County, where she lived while my father taught high school algebra, another trailer back in Allen, then a house in Frankfort. Her floors gleamed. All the while, photographs show her deterioration. The narrowed eyes, the stunned look as she holds a crying baby, the fear in her eyes as they move to one place, another, when she'd never been much of anywhere beyond the world of her parents in Dwell, Kentucky. Tight lips as she stood beside me in the driveway of the house while my father took our picture. Clean rooms, clean floors, chairs to look at, never sit in, table with food we ate carefully, never touching it with our hands. My father working late at the office and those calls from some other woman. I sleep with your husband 2 or 3 times a week, and I am insanely jealous. Her hope chest had opened like Pandora's box, and all the wishes flew out, their dark wings folding her in until she grew smaller and smaller and smaller. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Hello, my name is Jessica Bentley, and this is my first time to this series. I am in Round Head, Ohio currently, but I grew up in Eastern Kentucky, in Martin, Kentucky. I'll be reading my poem, Birchie. I see her now in my childhood mind, the 4 dank rooms she shuffled through, oxygen tank and cracked hands. The lucky strikes had done their work. She had an odd way about her as she sat on her little couch, a coffee table near her filled with ashtrays, crochet, and quilt patterns. She rocked silently as if rocking her infant, maybe a habit she could not cast away. She had rocked 13 babies since she herself was 13. A mother's way of holding on a little longer to the preciousness of being needed. Her children are grown and a few had slipped away, but on Sunday, her house was filled with their memories. There were murmurings of their children, their work in the mines, or simply laughter to pass the molasses that was Appalachian time. As they filled in, she would scutter about the kitchen, creating her masterpiece from pinto beans, lard, and flour. No one was allowed to cook but her. Everyone washed their dish to show respect of their full bellies and quieted hearts. For someone with meager means, she fed us all, Jesus breaking bread. Instead, hers was cornbread and blackberry dumplings. On summer nights, as thunderstorms graced the sky, Birchie and I would swing on her front porch where laughter would turn to conversations and lessons on life. We would retire to bed, falling asleep to Rockford Files and her muffled snoring. Birchie, she was not boring, a 22 under her pillow and a daily billow of smoke about her living room ceiling. Her cough ever present as she painted her nails red, crocheting blankets and stitching quilts for the holidays ahead. She was a constant for me, though. The rooms changed a bit, from the 4 rooms to a hospital bed. We continued our nightly routine there too, but we watched Johnny Carson instead. At night, I would sleep in the orange chair next to her bed with the dread of leaving. We would never swing again watching the rain. I knew to relieve her from the strain meant I would be broken. It broke too, my heart so big for her. With her last request, her nails were painted pink to match her jogging suit. Thank you.
My name is Susan Truxel Sauter. I'm Susan Truxel Sauter. I live in Preston County, West Virginia. For 4 years, I've been a part of the Women of Appalachia Project. I'll begin with my poem called Waiting. And waiting is the first word of the piece. Waiting used to be living for my flowered life to begin, school bus doors to open, school day to end, waiting to slip out of my father's troubled household, for the heavy black phone at the stairway nook to ring, waiting for my boyfriend to pick me up, my 16th birthday, when best friend would take me for a learner's permit, waiting for the day after graduation I'd turn out of that town and into a city, the pulse of waiting faster at the land-grant university, libraries to close, bars to open, my future husband to walk in. Dogs and decades later, I forgot how to wait and wait some more, slammed brakes waiting, pacing time for a decrease in body and soul sickness, of course in COVID cases or for its vaccine, when I can hug friends, breathe their unmasked air, for the November election, the chronic wait for common good, for decency to prevail. Tonight, I wait for the comet Neowise, but also wait for a surprise doe grazing in the high meadow to move her black hooved foot another step toward me with her speckled fawn. While she ciphers, I wait for rain. The milkweed leaves curled in upon themselves, the droughty grasses brittle as I am. High-pitched snort, white tail underside lifts, her body a twitch. The doe sprints while I wait for nightfall. I've waited for nature's evening to fall this and other times, and honestly, it doesn't. Lightning bugs rise, night birds sound, moon ascends, insects whine in the still air. Thank you. This second and last poem is titled One Last Waltz. I'd lift your blue left foot to my lap, work my fingers between the toes, move to the soles and over the rainbow instep. I'd press onward to give the neglected foot its due. You'd sit ancient in a maroon wing-backed chair, a house dress billowed over the missing breast and Frankenstein's scar. I'd blow my heart out, as I do anyway, hoping you'll hear me through the 1962 Bundy flute you and Grandma bought me with money tight so I could play in orchestra. I'd tell you how I left sheet music behind, taught myself to play by ear. I'd tell you goofy jokes, make you laugh, to hear how your voice sounded again. I'd paint your portrait, cause you to marvel at your already youngest daughter. If you agreed, I'd paint your nails, even the ones on your toes, fire engine red, your favorite lipstick color. Gazing up at your face, I'd mention I read that part in your diary about being engaged to Homer, your true love, before my father. I'd ask if the World War ended your plans, the boatswain cutting you loose in the meantime. I'd ask why you didn't wait for him, but of course I wouldn't be asking anything then. As I combed your hair, I'd gently ask if you could recount from start to finish how you came to spend time in Tiffin Mental Hospital, what they did to you there, if it helped after losing the stillborn baby boy, if it helped you return to a household of blame. Soon, we'd smell a cake baking, hear the screen door screech open. Teacher friends, sorority sisters, and even Grandma herself would bustle in, loaded with gifts to lay at your now manicured feet. Later, when all was quiet and your cells pulsed round and pink, I'd say, Mother, remember when we used to waltz to Lawrence Welk? You'd nod, rise, turn on the television console, and with outstretched hands, take mine in yours. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Lois Spencer, and I live in Belpre, Ohio. This is an abridged version of The Initiate. The summer Carrie and I were 11, she decided to become my friend, and that made no sense at all because we were polar opposites. It didn't take long, though, to figure out that Carrie loved nothing so much as a patsy, and I was the perfect candidate. Carrie's friendship came with directives. The first time I used a bathroom at her house, she went with me and said that shorts and panties had to go down to the ankles. I objected to exposing private property, but Margie, her protege, was there for backup, so I complied, knowing my mom would go through the roof if she found out. Initiates had to help Carrie babysit. Young mothers, desperate for freedom, entrusted their toddlers to Carrie for whatever coins they could scratch up. Margie and I were unpaid assistants who changed diapers and did other onerous jobs. Carrie claimed to know everything about babies, but her foremost expertise lay in how babies were made. My mom's sketchy information had left a few holes, which Carrie filled in, shocked that I was so ignorant. I wondered how she knew so much. I was soon to learn that Carrie had sticky fingers. Bold as brass, she snitched $2 out of the money jar in my bedroom with me standing right there. That afternoon, while I bought snacks for us in the variety store, she shoplifted a candy bar. "You almost got caught," I hissed as we left the store. Unruffled, she savored the gooey chocolate. Then she grabbed the bag out of my hand and trotted down the sidewalk, swinging it at her side. I stood in the bright June sunshine and calculated my losses for the day. It was time to give myself a break. Mom was relieved. She did not approve of Carrie's parents. Mrs. Carter, who worked at a factory, swore loud enough to be heard across the street and went outside in a flimsy housecoat. Mom said Mr. Carter was a lech and warned me never to be alone with him. Still, feeling lonely one Saturday evening, I decided to give Carrie one more chance. My parents were on the back porch reading and wouldn't move inside until it was dark enough, too dark to see the print. I could be home before they had a chance to miss me. Carrie was clearing up from supper and the loyal Margie was filling the sink with sudsy water. Mr. Carter smoked a cigarette at the table, glancing at the open sports page to camouflage his scrutiny of Margie's smooth white legs. Mrs. Carter appeared wearing a dress that left little to the imagination. "You look pretty, Mommy," Carrie said. "Thank you, baby." Mrs. Carter shook a cigarette out of her husband's pack and listed Carrie's chores for the evening. Finish the kitchen, scrub the bathroom, vacuum the living room carpet. Carrie groaned. Mrs. Carter continued, "Once you grow up, you'll learn what real work is." The perfect comeback popped into my head and simultaneously blurted from my mouth. Maybe she'll have a daughter to do her work for her. Mrs. Carter whirled to face me. This was my cue to apologize, but I was too dumbstruck to oblige. Heels clicking, she walked out, showing a level of discretion Mom would never have believed. Mr. Carter adjusted himself as he rose. Seconds later, their car started, breaking the silence. A wicked grin spread across Carrie's face. Miss Goody-Goody had finally shown some attitude. Carrie opened a box of Little Debbie snack cakes and shook them onto the table. She gestured Margie and me over. As Margie reached for one, Carrie shook her head. "No shirt at the table." Margie pulled off her t-shirt and hunched over as she tore open the package, unable to hide the hard pink nipples and the soft mounds emerging beneath. Carrie looked up at me, waiting, but I remained as I was. "You can keep yours on," she said. So I was to get a reward. I could eat a chocolate cake with my shirt on because I had made a rude remark to somebody's mother. Instead of joining Carrie and Margie at the table, I walked outside into a peaceful summer evening and waited at the edge of the street for a string of cars to pass. Then I crossed to the other side. Back home, Mom scooted over to make room for me in the swing. I rested my head on her shoulder as she returned to her reading. On the lattice beside us, the day's morning glory blossoms had withered, but bright new faces would open in the morning. The next afternoon, Carrie showed up and headed straight for my bedroom. Her eyes scanned the dresser top. My trinket box and picture frames, brush and comb and hand mirror were all in their places, everything except the money jar. "It's not there anymore," I said from the doorway. She looked at me as if seeing me for the first time, and maybe she was. The impact of a small, silent figure, stripped of brashness and swagger, and returning to her side of the street has never left me, nor has contemplating what secret darkness had made her so desperate. Thank you.
Kathleen, your mic is not on. Kathleen?
Thanks, Carrie. I'm Kathleen Burgess from Chillicothe, Ohio. I served for a year as a juror for Women Speak and 3 more as a reader. These poems are for my husband, my Appalachian husband, Jack. Uncertain March. By Caldwell Lake, a dry percussion of leaves leached thin, color faded, a sepia print. Memories whisper other seasons. One leaf cartwheels in, floats. On our lips and tongues sandwiches taste of wood. Finish as whole grain bread with cheese, firm but not so thick in the mouth. Twig and branch swell with buds. Maple sap has begun its rise and fall, sweet in a bald southern Ohio winter, unsettling for all who think of freeze and denial. Spring will yield uncertain futures, the futures certain ends. Under the high ever blue, we cross a red wooden footbridge. Below, water glistens, ripples so swiftly from hill to lake that I wonder how the tide restless ocean floors could ever petrify. Fragments of shell and coral surface limestone boulders longing above the channel. In sand, among prints of raccoon and gear and geese, adolescents have written Emily, Scott, and a swear with sticks. After yesterday's storms, all this persists. Sanctuaries. 4 walls define us for the duration, season or seasons still unknown. We watch daily maps as crowned primitive life forms pass through the world, reach new hosts, multiply within. If we open, viral clouds could enter. The wealthy extol as virtue that some must take one for the nation's good, go back to work. Our infection's a small matter to them. You and I, our work years lie behind us. Death may cling to hair, fingers, faces, lungs on a day that begins like any other. But, oh, the mystery of where, when, how, not now, not now, not today, I nightmare. Morning doves wake before dawn. Light raises us from bed. Song sparrows heft and balance twigs, flying them to their nests. For jonquils, earth opens innumerable mouths to the rain. Forsythia too flares into fountaining.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Hambrick in Columbus, Ohio. This is The Rib of Eve. The story goes that in the garden, Adam sacrificed a rib, not knowing that Eve would come of it, that he gave her his flesh, the viper's nest that would spell their end. I am told that when she stood on the land that bore her mothers, my great-grandmother resembled from a distance a diagonal line, leaning toward the right, winds stirring bluegrass at her feet as she pressed her fist into the pain that lived in her left side just below the ribs. I'm told she always stepped farther with the right leg than with the left, as though to flee the pain that now catches at my waist and steals my breath. I wonder if Adam walked around the garden with his hand on his side, pressing into the wound to staunch the ache that flowed to Eve and all the generations. Or maybe this was Eve's job, to clutch her penance for damning her children forever. And my second and final poem for the afternoon is called Spitting Downstairs. Third floor, Ishmael Apartments, no elevator even on grocery days. I'm 7 years old and outside grandmother's door looking down over the dark wood banister, and I spit straight down into its spiral echo, around and around each flight of stairs, all the way down to the ground floor, all the way through black grouting between white hexagonal tiles, old like worn out chicken wire, to the barnyard and great-grandmother wringing supper's neck, waiting for supper to stop flailing, reflexively flapping, waiting for supper to go silent. Spit splats a cold smack like limp flesh on hard white countertop, the only sound in the silence of the barnyard, stunned cluckless, as though every voice in solidarity with the one squeezed out with the neck that held it tight, along with the one that longed for the length and breadth of the world beyond barnyard, beyond cast iron skillet, beyond chicken wire and porcelain tile, beyond banister, beyond sagging apartment, beyond the desperate silence of failed freedom, just beyond. Thank you.
I'm Susanna Nestor. I grew up in the Appalachian Mountains, and I now live in the mountains outside of Taos, New Mexico. I'm going to read you a short essay titled September 11th, 1965. The burgundy Corvair was twisted and smoldering in a yard on Dorman Drive. People on that street hire gardeners who aren't kids to mow their lawns. The car was dead earlier that day, so I poured Coca-Cola on the battery terminals to get rid of the corrosion, hooked up the cables, put in fresh air, oil, aired up the tires. I slapped the hood and told my brother he was good to go. He was going over the hill to Sauterville to visit a pretty girl named Valerie. Jim never had much luck with the girls from Portsmouth. He stuttered a lot, got cut from baseball. His eyes were always shifting back and forth, and he counted to himself. No one thought much of it back then. They just called it awkward. He was constantly in trouble with my dad because he didn't know a screwdriver from a wrench. Don't worry, I always told him. Sissy knows all the tools and can fix anything for you. We don't have to tell anyone, just pretend you did it. It was my 13th birthday. Giggling girls had just arrived when the call came in. We were having pink and blue decorated cake from the store, pizza delivery. It was the first time I was getting store-bought food. The cake had sparkles and squeezy frosting with my name. The pizzas were covered in silver dollar pepperoni. Until then, pizza delivery was something I only had at rich friends' houses. Balloons were everywhere, colored napkins matched the plates. This was a real party, just like on TV. Other birthdays had always been after church with grandma, and instead of ham or chicken, we had a special meal like fish sticks and crinkle fries. Mom loved German chocolate cake, so she always made one. The coconut on it smelled awful. Every year I would ask for a different cake, but she always said, "You don't know what's good, stop being picky." It was just getting dark. Jim must have been lying there under the canopied maple tree, hoping this was a bad dream, slipping in and out of consciousness. Red lights and sirens filled the blackening sky. I hoped he wasn't dead. I couldn't shake an image of him in that hospital bed as white as can be. Eyes now closed, vacant speech, absolute silence. I hoped he wasn't in trouble. Even more, I hoped he wouldn't get yelled at. But he did. Mama and Daddy told him he ruined my birthday party and he didn't need no girl over the hill. There's plenty of girls right here. And that car isn't going to fix itself, so that's the end of that. The next day, I got to see him. He was black and blue and stuck with tubes. Broken ribs made it hard for him to breathe. He asked me if he was going to die. I convinced him not to worry and he would get fixed. I knew at least the bones would mend. "Sorry about your party," he cried, tearful, his voice weak. I told him that parties are overrated. He scooted over, motioned me closer. "Me and Valerie were having so much fun. Don't tell, but we got into her daddy's whiskey and were cutting up until her mama told me it was time to leave." I asked if he got any kisses. "Of course, just a few, and she's like a real girlfriend. We had popcorn. She doesn't make fun of me. Now I guess we have to break up." I wished he hadn't wrecked that car. I wished for more Valeries. I wished it wasn't just the bones that broke in him that night. I wished my tools could have fixed more than just dead batteries. I wish Mama and Daddy weren't always so mad. I wish normal didn't have to be so cruel. I wish there weren't birthdays. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Christine Williams. I live in Athens, Ohio. I've been involved with Women Speak from the very beginning. I have two poems for you today. The first one is Hunting Abalone. You tell a story that starts just before dawn, and I see stars, bright still, horizon indigo. Remember a dress that color. Dancing with the boy who asked me at the last minute, held me against his body, tender new breasts in my first strapless bra. 30 years later, your voice takes me to the rocks, coast of Point Reyes. No sunbathing here, just you, reaching blindly under jagged rock in not even faith, just wanting. Searching lightly, questing fingers gentle and quick, brushing along to feel for the foot of the abalone there. Reach wrong or roughly, and the muscle will clench around your hand, trapping you. Tide rising. Divers have drowned that way. The water is cold, you say, so you drink brandy, and I feel the fiery track it makes from the back of your throat to your stomach, warmth spreading. Later, on the beach, there's a fire. Your friend pounding the abalone, cooking it so tender you can cut it with the edge of your spoon. I think of the boy who promised in the dark, left me after graduation, disappeared to Alaska, left me scooped out tender. That blue dress hung on the back of the closet door for 2 years until I left for college, wondering about the boy who made my heart clench. I would have drowned that way. Frisson, you explain. 6 feet of lanky, loose-jointed boy slouched in the passenger seat, finger stabbing at the console. That feeling at the end of this song, it shatters my spine. Do you ever feel like that, Mom? And I still my tongue, but in my head I make a list. The first time I saw your long fingers, the way your hair curls over your collar, no matter how many times you wet and comb it. The time I saw you hold that girl's face, framing it with your hands before you leaned in and I turned away. Every day I know you.
Hello, everyone. I am Mimi Merritt, and I live in Bluefield, West Virginia. This is my second year with Women Speaks, and I will be reading from my essay, Unveiling. In the West Virginia mountains, we sleep in July with windows open to mate-calling tree frogs at night and birdsong at dawn. Roses, hydrangeas, and purple blossomed hostas do not fear a pandemic, much less the bees that suck their sugar. Nature is healthy, we are advised. Take walks, dine outside, garden. No mask needed in my own backyard. I am growing too accustomed to my mask. I wonder if I will ever unmask. Last fall, I was in a different quarantine, sequestered at my 95-year-old mother's sickbed, which devolved into her deathbed, afraid of missing her last breath. She had delivered me into my first breath, drawing back a veil for me to enter this life. And now here was I pushing spoonfuls of applesauce and sips of water as she readied herself to leave this life for the next. Even as she talked increasingly to someone in the shadows beyond me and above me, her words in those moments unintelligible. I couldn't leave her alone. She was dying, but she was not losing her mind. One day she asked for her notebook, the one in which she had itemized her possessions with their histories. She had opened it countless times in recent years to make notes as we sipped wine together while watching sunsets. The corner cupboard was made on her grandfather's farm in the 1800s. The red poppies she had painted herself, winning 3rd place in a regional art show. The china with the vivid rose and blue flowers she had selected as a bride. On another day, she asked for her jewelry box. I shuddered. Not now, I said. Later. Let's do it this weekend when family comes in. The diagnosis had meant a steady streaming in and out of loved ones, eager to share stories, thinking goodbyes if not voicing them. Fresh cut flowers, homemade custards, and hands holding hers were a luxury of dying before the pandemic. Then came the day we transferred Mama to a hospital bed. A grandson dismantled her antique cherry bed with the valance of gold flowers and green vines that had veiled her rest for half a century. Mama didn't care for the hospital bed. The moment we settled her in, tucking pillows against aching hips and under swollen ankles, she looked at me, cornflower blue eyes staring into my green. Where is my valance? She asked. I'm having someone adjust it so it will fit over this new bed, just so, I lied. She saw straight through me, sighed, and turned her head away. The next morning was her last. Alone with her, holding her hand, I heard down deep inside her what the hospice nurse had warned of, the crackling sound of the death rattle. Her lips were moving with words I couldn't hear. Was she talking to me or to someone else? Someone dancing in the ceiling shadows. No valance, no veil, no mask for her anymore. I felt her leave. I am an orphan now at 62. I walk new territory. The dining room table I coveted for decades is now mine. It seats 12, but we don't have company these days. Too risky with the virus. I also have her glass prisms. By a bare window with no blinds or drapery to filter sun's rays. These light catchers cast morning rainbows across my living room ceiling from beyond the veil. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Karen Whittington Nelson, and this is my 6th season with Women of Appalachia, and I live in southeastern Ohio. I have 2 poems to share. Homecoming. He busies his impatient hands, adjusts himself, checks his zipper, creases the seam of his trousers, waits for his daughter in this parked car that has carried him the distance upriver, 100 or so miles as a crow flies, to this place along the Muskingum, where his daughter chooses to smother her own light, to hide inside a room locked from the outside, protected by her own craziness from his. He waits, anticipating the timid chemical shuffle across the graveled parking lot, her quiet before the storm approach. He's missed her, can't wait to see her, his girl. Thoughts roll through his head like sooty smoke, seeking a crack through which to escape and muddy the sky. The abandoned rest stop at the edge of town. The car concealed in a copse of neglected pines. The unexpected force it takes to force her frail body Thoughts roll through his head like sooty smoke, seeking a crack through which to escape and muddy the sky. The abandoned rest stop at the edge of town. The car concealed in a copse of neglected pines. The unexpected force it takes to hold her frail body splayed across the back seat. A tap on the window derails his thoughts. A figure in scrubs, a stuttered apology, mumbled condolences. He will not be fetching his daughter today. She could not wait for him, has already left. Please let her mother know her beloved girl will be along soon, expected to surface downriver close to her mama's house in but a few days or so. Motherless girls. Like baby birds left unattended, motherless girls huddle hungry, shiver in the cold, naked but for downy vulnerability and the itch of pin feathers. Motherless girls, like abandoned baby birds, trill "Love me" as they scratch for tidbits of affection beneath layers of neglect, dig until their raw feet hit rejection. Left to wither, motherless girls and forgotten birdlings withdraw deeper into twist and tangle, fall silent and spent, too weak to chirp. The most desperate or daring plunge over the rim of the world into the void. Some fall into gaping jaws, shatter on impact, or ache for the belonging songs that they were never taught. The lucky ones, like my mother and her sisters, jump holding hands, the buoyancy of their bond holding them aloft. Thank you.
I see that Sarah Mingus is back with us, and Stephanie has been gracious enough to say, please let's let Sarah finish her poem. So Sarah, if you just want to start from the top, that would be great. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Sunday paper, disgruntled salesman, and $1.35. Lazily curled up in lavender smelling sheets, naked bits peeking out here and there, awoken from her slumber by glimpses of sun and a pounding headache, remnants of last night's frat party. Dry mouth reminds her she needs a cup of java. Perhaps it will make her hangover go away, she hopes. Clad in her favorite jeans, she grabs the t-shirt hanging on the chair, flip-flops, oversized designer glasses, pulls her long locks into a long, loose ponytail, headed down the Tennessee Hill to the gas station for coffees, funnies, and the Sunday news. Ex-Marine stands alert at the counter, frowning. She hurries over to the newspaper stand, disappointed to see the top copy crumpled, likely missing the juicy parts. Halfway down, she pulls out a crisp, fresh copy. A burly voice says, "You need to take the one on the top." Disclaimer: Knoxville men often believe women belong in the kitchen, barefoot and pregnant. But sir, I say in my best Nebraska girl turned Tennessean accent, your top paper is all crumpled. I want to make sure I get all the juicy parts. I straightened up your stack, all real nice and neat. I used to work retail. He puffs up, glares, and smacks back a retort. Oh, so you think that $1.35 gives you the right to decide what paper you get to buy? Sassy brain kicked in, smiling. I stared right back and said, you're damn right I do. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Stephanie Kendrick. This is my third year with the Women of Appalachia Project, and I'm reading from Albany, Ohio. This is Dragging My Heart Around Appalachia. Crossing the Ohio River smells like wet iron and catfish until you hit Kentucky and goldenrod and fried chicken smacks your face so hard tears fly out your eyes. Tennessee wind swirls through your ears, a low moan, carrying with it the sound of Aretha, soul-swelling air that makes your hips shift without asking permission. When you walk the sands of the Carolinas, your right hand can't stop grasping the air by your hip, for one that waved goodbye years ago and left saltwater scars on your cheeks. The accent picked up in Georgia drips down your chin like peach spit when you remember the woman at the truck stop with the bloodshot eyes who worked so hard to upsell you cherry pie. Isn't the ruffed grouse insane to stay in Pennsylvania all year, never flying south as though it loves the snow, or dare I say, its home? Maryland cigarettes burned to ash, and by the time the gas ran out in Alabama, you were sucking old filters, making up curse words, your mother flying out of your mouth in bursts of smoke. You try to remember Mississippi, but you can't. Beer in hand as soon as you cross that border, as if you'd been running on fumes too. Every time you cross state lines, you hold your breath. The smell of sour mash or dandelion stems tickle your nose. A warm breeze whispers in your ear, now you're home. And this next poem I wrote for my mom, but I also devote it to all of you, to the women of Appalachia. Hustlers of the hills and valleys and every mountaintop in between, to women who defy laws of time and space because we have shit to do. Women who one day cradle cooing baby and the next day wave them off to war. Women who know that war happens in deserts and in their own backyards. Big pharma, modern day coal companies, hollowed out our people this time. To women who spend their summers saving green beans and tomatoes from the garden, saving money by using the clothesline, and saving all those empty-bellied neighbor kids. To the women of Appalachia, mountain mamas who work full-time, take online classes, and still have dinner on the table. To women who raise daughters, earn their GED, and order takeout instead. Women who know Virginia creeper as a pesky vine, and the ones who know it as a strain of pot. Women who take belly dancing classes and still call complete strangers baby doll. Women who leave bread on front porches of neighbors they will later gossip about before adding them to their prayer chains. To the women who take bourbon in their coffee, and the ones who never touch that stuff because they saw what it did to their mamas. To their mamas who just want to forget. To the women who write poems in their showers and refuse to edit the yalls and hollers that inevitably crawl their way back in. To all these women and the women they know, the roots holding us from being washed away, the anchors that keep the current from pulling us under, the stars that guide us home.
Hi, everyone. I'm Cecil Dixon from Estill County, Kentucky. I'm going to read the end of a short fiction piece titled Rabbit. We meet Billie Jean, a married mother of 2 toddlers, on her 21st birthday. This morning, we find her feeding rabbits. Billie Jean moved to the back of the hen house where the rabbit hutch was mounted on the wall. The rabbits scurried to meet her, each wanting to get to the feed pan first. With a grunt, Billie Jean hefted a 5-gallon bucket from the top of the hutch and filled the scoop with rabbit feed. Maneuvering around the 10 squirming rabbits, she poured pellets into the feed pan. Billie Jean stroked the soft fur of the rabbits, cupping her fingers around their sides and filling their fat bellies. Maybe her mama'd stop by today and bring her something for her birthday. She sure hoped it'd be a pair of shoes. She could use them. Her fingers felt a belly that seemed to be fatter than the others. Quickly, she clamped her hand down and grabbed the rabbit by the back of its neck and pulled it out of the hutch, closing the door behind her. The rabbit kicked and squirmed futilely against her hand. She pulled it in close to her chest. She could feel its heart thumping wildly. Don't be scared, little rabbit. She rubbed her cheek against the white fur. What would it feel like to be covered in something so soft? Billie Jean grasped the rabbit's scuff with her left hand and hefted it a few times. Yeah, you sure are getting fat. The rabbit struggled against her. Its long black feet searched the air for something solid. It squirmed and twisted until its sharp claws raked across Billie Jean's hand, leaving 2 red trails. She tightened her grip on the frantic rabbit and watched as its bright drops of blood oozed from the twin lines. You getting loose wouldn't do either one of us any good. She walked to the far side of the rabbit hutch and stood on a large flat rock. Moving quickly, she grasped both of the rabbit's feet in her right hand and began to swing it in an arc back and forth. With each arc, the rabbit seemed lighter. and droplets of blood splashed from Billie Jean's hand onto the rock. Each swing gained speed. The rabbit's struggle slowed and stopped with the swinging movement. It became a limp white blur in her hand. When the momentum was right and Billie Jean knew she couldn't get any more force from her swing, whack! She connected the rabbit's skull with the rock. The impact traveled up her arm and left a shudder on her brain. Billie Jean lay the rabbit's body down on the rock and squatted beside it. The rabbit twitched and a trickle of blood ran from its big ear and stained the white fur. She watched as death clouded the black eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the dying rabbit. "I don't like killing things, and I never wanted to hurt you." A tear slowly ran down Billie Jean's cheek, and she angrily brushed it away. "But it's like this. My kids wouldn't have anything for breakfast except some biscuits and water gravy." The rabbit stopped twitching, and Billie Jean rubbed its fur once again. "That ain't enough for growing babies. They need meat." She pulled a knife from her shorts pocket. "I'm sorry, but the good Lord not only give you soft fur, he made you out of meat." Billie Jean stuck the tip of the knife blade into the soft skin between the rabbit's hind legs and cut through the skin to the breastbone. Later that morning, she watched her babies smack their lips and ate tender fried rabbit. She smiled at them and took another bite of her biscuit with water gravy. "Thank you."
Hello, everyone. I'm Catherine Studer. I live in Westerville, Ohio, and this is my third year with the project. And I'm going to read a poem dedicated to my great-great-great-grandmother. Saving the Children. Sydney Eisen could see the locusts swarming the pear trees. She could chase them with her long-handled broom months before the neighbors could hear the high tenor songs, believing if paired in groups, they might mate and never quit, stripping the leaves and bark to a stick. She taught them to keep looking for what cannot be seen. Some days she would scribble a list on the wooden table her husband Wink made her from a rotten maple that fell on the roof just far enough from the door frame to save the house. On her list, she would scribble sugar, Tabasco sauce, cinnamon, chard to be boiled. Other days she would sit at the table, drawing lines through the things she could do without, replace the Tabasco with ground pepper, drain the beehives. On the Sabbath, through hollered complaints of how church was a waste of a perfectly good Sunday, she would spit bath the children's faces with a hanky as they entered the church doors with hushed words and absent parents, telling them to kneel, to pray, to understand. They came from the coal mining soil they carried on their souls, from the muddy cornfields that ran off the hills, and from those voices that knew how to sing, from those voices that knew how to sing hallelujah, how to keep standing, how to sing praise. Thank you.
I'm Nancy Posey, and this is my first time to read with the Appalachian Project. I live in Brentwood, Tennessee, but I'm an Alabama girl who spent 23 years in the foothills of North Carolina. The first poem I'm reading is called Adages. Like fragments of poems, she fed me wise words gleaned from sages, passed down from ancestors, never insisting I listen. She merely sang them, tunes in harmony with our days, so subtle I never knew what I had learned. Lessons indelible as tattoos. Haste makes waste. A penny saved is a penny earned. A stitch in time saves 9. Preparing me for a future we'd not share, she showed me how to thread a needle, to slide beeswax along the thread, to tie a knot both sure and invisible. So now when missing her, I climb up on her wooden stool, take down boxes from the highest closet shelf, unpacking all her dresses, blouses, broadcloth, wool, inhale her scent, inspect the French seams, her tiny, even stitches, hand-tatted lace trim, the only decoration she allowed herself. I summon her spirit, her scissors as sharp as when she wielded them, sorting through fabric she had saved for later, some special occasion, or perhaps saved for me. Laying out the tissue pattern, using her silver flatware, knives and forks instead of pins to hold each piece in place. I hear her voice in my ear, a bit of melody whispered. Measure twice, cut once. And the second poem is Grandma Shares Wisdom, more or less. She misquoted all the great ones, Shakespeare, Twain, Jesus Christ himself. Don't look a gift horse in the eye, she warned, when we ventured first together into the livestock show at the county fair, where I, a boy more curious than wise, stepped too close. Neither a borrower nor a blender bee, she responded when I asked for change, when the ice cream man's music sang down the street, the song about Casey who waltzed with the strawberry blonde with a Band-Aid on. Commenting on missteps by well-meaning friends, she summed up, well, when all is said and done, we learn not to press for explanation, nor to correct, accepting that a stitch in time saves knives, and it's better to give than to believe. Whether her muse was Uncle Remus or the Apostle Paul, we nodded and answered, yes, ma'am, knowing full well she had promised she'd never steer us to Rome.
Hi, I'm Barbara Sable from Akron, Ohio, and originally from Johnstown, Pennsylvania. I have two poems. First is Stella's Dishes. Talk of vegetable plots, cures, meager accounts as mugs clattered from cupboard to oilcloth, pungent grounds boiling in the pot, hobo coffee, she called it, mixed with a dour odor of mock water, spent chaw, ham and cabbage on the back burner. She cradled me against her, strained coffee into mugs with her free hand. My grandmother and the aunts clustered around the large table, midday break. Work-chafed hands wrapped this mug, delicate, with a handle designed for curled index and balanced thumb, ceramic no thicker than chipped bone. Her lips touched my forehead, blew away steam, then sipped, sighed before she leaned into the spindled chair back. No painted mouth ever marred its rim. Stories replace impossible memories. On my first birthday, she was buried, 52, essential, with another granddaughter to coddle, a clan to feed, work to finish. With the urgency of a taproot, I recall a thick, warm woman with wire-rimmed glasses, auburn hair close cropped, minced smile, sensible shoes, always an apron tied over her dress. 3 were salvaged decades later, after my grandfather died, the same number of bodies that had slept per bed in her house. Some tight sentiment held them in the cabinet corner, preserved, ready. I recognized them, asked, can I have them? Knew somehow what potency they held. In sway now behind leaded glass cupboards, custom finished. Mornings, I savor Arabica, fresh ground, drip brewed, smooth. More or less unencumbered, I ease into the day, imagining Stella. Sleeves rolled bicep high, with a daily resolve bitter as her blistered coffee drunk black. And the second poem Another coffee poem, over easy at the all-night diner. I dump out the old brew and sizzle up the grill around dawn. When the third shifters thin out and the day shift rolls in, then I spot him. Red stitching above his breast pocket reads Tom. In wrinkled coveralls, he leans on the counter and orders eggs over hard, yolk hard as the August sun, bubbled like fresh tar under his roller, leaves me his change and downs the dregs. Most guys take theirs over easy. They like for the yolk to ooze, then sop it up with a slice of bread. Most still dreaming, eyes half open, maybe wishing the day was already over, but nobody says. Bet he knocks off same time as me. I follow him home in my head. A tidy one-bedroom painted robin egg blue, pictures on the walls. We'd sleep in till whenever, then I'd bring his eggs to the bed. Over easy this time. Spread jelly on his toast. Then he turns me once, easy, over. I notice the color of his eyes. This is where it gets blurry. We have nothing to say or say nothing. Either way, things get tense. I'll keep an eye out for a guy with a sewn-on name to float my theory, while I sizzle up the grill, scoop out fine ground Joe in no big hurry. Thanks.
My name is Erin Reed. I live in Kingsport, Tennessee, and I'm reading Save Yourself. Sandra straddled the air. Humidity and the cloying smell of uncured tobacco filled the space between her legs. She balanced on two beams a yard apart and 20 feet off the ground. Every time she bent to grab another rack of tobacco from her cousin on the tier below, the beams groaned. An unnerving Rice Krispies snap, crackle, pop. Surely her uncle wouldn't put her up so high if it was dangerous. Or maybe that was why he paid her a little extra on the side. She needed the money, though. In 2 weeks, she'd go to college. Most of her classmates had signed on at the tire plant. Only a handful of kids were going away to school, and she was one of them. Soon there'd be no tobacco barns, no more kudzu-wrapped telephone poles or muddy ponds. The thought thrilled her, but it guilted her too. She should be scheming with PJ, planning a going-away party with bootleg beer in an unlit field by the river. Sandra bent and lifted, tobacco leaves rustling across the rubber soles of her sneakers, over her jeans and against her dad's work shirt that she wore knotted at the waist. She'd learned her lesson to wear long sleeves last summer when she helped hop tobacco in the field. Then she'd only worn a tank top and cutoffs. It was blistering hot and she wanted to work on her tan. She stretched up row after row to pluck flowered crowns, leaning into the green leaves, sticky like fly paper against her skin. By evening, Sandra crumpled on the bathroom floor, tanned biscuit brown, her cheek resting on the cool edge of the toilet, retching from tobacco sickness. Now, Sandra roasted in the long sleeve button-up. Her feet were numb, fixed in the same position for hours, afraid to move even a toe length, afraid of losing her balance. But at least at the top of the barn, there were fewer mosquitoes, and it was quiet, with only the rattle of tobacco leaves and the muffled voices of Waylon and Dolly drifting up from the AM radio. Sandra could think better up there, too. She mostly thought about PJ Sutton and Richie and how the summer could still be different. She wished life were one of those choose-your-own-adventure books she'd read as a kid, with do-overs, so she could trial through the choices and figure out which was best. Maybe then she could fix the summer. Maybe then PJ could have been saved and she'd know what to do about Richie. All summer he'd been begging her to sleep with him. Come on, he'd say, you're leaving soon. She couldn't deny that at times sex was all she wanted, especially when Richie slid his hands into the back pockets of her Lee jeans, pulling her close, his warm breath dampening her neck. Just thinking about it made her tingle like a Zippo lighter, flick, flick, flicking between her thighs. She didn't love him, though. He whispered he loved her, mostly when they were tangled up in the back seat of his Chevelle. She'd say, love you too, leaving off the I. If she waited, she might meet someone at college, someone she truly loved. Shouldn't her first time be making love and not just screwing? Screwing would only make her feel guilty. Life was too short for guilt, though, and maybe too short to wait. In the third grade, Sandra won the spelling bee. The prize was a giant red lollipop, wide as a saucer and studded with rainbow sprinkles. Sandra tucked it away in her nightstand to savor on a special occasion. When she pulled it out a year later, the candy was soft and melted to the cellophane wrapper. This summer, Sandra had waited too long again. Of course, there was no way to know if she'd been anywhere else, if she'd left Richie's house sooner instead of humoring him on his parents' plaid sofa, that PJ would still be alive. As kids, she and PJ met every Sunday in the church kitchen after the closing prayer to gorge on communion leftovers. They'd huddle over the counter between piles of laundered dishcloths and wash down bite-sized wafers with sips of red grape juice. Sandra remembered a particular Sunday when she was 12, the day she wore lip gloss for the first time. It was also the first time that she felt that pleasant throb, that premonition of sex. A crumb caught in the sticky sheen on her lips. "You got something on your mouth," PJ said, brushing it away. His thumb on her lip, a camera bulb flashed in Sandra's belly, casting light up and down her insides, illuminating crevices she'd never noticed before. Maybe PJ had felt it too. Sandra squinted, wringing wet from her eyes, tears or sweat, she couldn't tell. Outside the barn's upper window, she could just glimpse the Sutton property across the field, the white-sided farmhouse still, no one running out the back screen door like they'd done as kids when Sandra and PJ had scrambled up these barn beams, splintered palms outstretched as they balanced across the rafters like tightrope walkers, never frightened, never considering that one misstep could mean death. Sandra straightened herself, readying for the next tobacco rack. The beams creaked again, and Sandra shuddered, imagining her body crumpled on the packed dirt floor below, like a baby bird flipped from the nest, contorted into freakish angles, eyes open, tongue hanging out, dead too soon and still a virgin. Thank you.
Hi, my name is McKenna Revel. I'm from Mount Sterling, Kentucky, and I'll be reading How to Make an Appalachian Woman. Mix the disappointment with the meal, fry it up good, darken the edges, add a bad joke to coat, call it cornbread. Soften macaroni and tomatoes, make sure to leave the skin, call it resilience. Pinto beans from a can, no really, just pinto beans, and humility. Green beans and some dead pig pieces, because the men of the family insist on a hint of grief. Mash the potatoes down deep in the pot, because you know what's best for them, because your grandmother showed you how, and that's what love is. Suffocating, rich, with pepper every now and then, when you've got the energy to spare on suffering the burn.
Hi, my name is Bonnie Proudfoot. I'm from Athens, Ohio, and I've been associated off and on with Women of Appalachia. So impressed, 71 people at this Zoom. It's amazing. This is a poem. I'm going to read one poem called Elegy for Farm Life. Outside the window, peach trees line the field. The road snakes downhill, then drops out of sight beyond the ridgeline west toward the setting sun. Chickens roost for the night. A few yards into the woods, a sow and piglets root and grunt. Light stripes the yard in long diagonals, seeps across the windowsill. Watch the girl at the kitchen window. She raises children, keeps them safe, plants a garden, wills it to grow, yanks out the weeds. Watch her read The Joy of Cooking. Check how to sterilize jars for canning. See diagrams of the cuts of meat. Note the correct internal temperature. The yearling pig looks her in the eyes before they shoot it. Is that how it's supposed to work? Yes, others have been here before. They knew what to do. She thinks she has something she needs to prove. Chickens come racing over, follow even to the slaughter. Each time the eyes dull, the distance is less than a weightless breath. Heat stays in the warm flesh. Blood stains the ground dark brown. She walks past the chopping block, the meat saw. The work is not done until it is done. The house smells like death. She knows that. She used to think that she could do anything, that she could be anyone she willed herself to be. It was a story she told herself, then told it again to make it true. Look, here are photos, peach trees in bloom, sun that streams across the yard. There she is at the window, holding on for dear life. The light so bright, the kitchen so clean.
Perfect pitch. I rode middle school bound in the back seat of my aunt's station wagon, listening to her and Mama sing Jolene, trading verses, harmonizing on the chorus. I'm begging of you, please don't take my man. A few years later, it was 9-5. They were fired up and it was Dolly's doing. This was rural Ohio, the bottom lip of northern Appalachia, right shy of Perry Como country. The women in my family worked the TS trim factory, spitting out Honda car parts. Started out on the assembly line, worked their way up to paint, then detailing, then welding. The physical labor made their bodies strong, their future bright, and like Dolly, they weren't taking any shit. They learned early on about strikes and picket lines, how important it was to organize and vote. Brave women in the workforce, determined to see their daughters inside college classrooms the hell out of Factory Row. I didn't know then that I was being raised by a feminist taking back her power. Like Dolly, my mama would never use that word, no matter how much she embodied it. She was proud to hang up her welder's helmet end of shift, pick up her paycheck, sing in the front seat of a station wagon with women she loved. Again, I want to thank our hosts, Sally Brown and Beth Torin, and West Virginia University's Morgantown Libraries, along with the support from the Women's Resource Center and the West Virginia University LGBTQ+ Center and Center for Women's and Gender Studies. That's just so marvelous that all these people came together to help make this happen. And to all of our wonderful people in the audience here today, we are so thankful for that. And we hope that you will consider purchasing a copy or more of our wonderful anthology, Women Speak. And also in the chat box are the many chat books and books available from our participants today and others that are visiting. We will be in Clarksburg at the Clarksburg Harrison Public Library on November the 14th at this very same time, 1 to 3. You can find out that information on their website or on the Women of Appalachia website or on Facebook and Twitter. And you will register for that event just as you did for this one and be able to attend that as well. And we will have 23 different people reading their work. So you will hear a completely different presentation of beautiful, beautiful women's voices. So I would ask that all of you remain vigilant, friends, and until we meet again. And if you do want to take a moment to turn on your mics and just say goodbye to everyone and happy day, I'm totally open to that. We are very close to running out of time, but I invite you to clap for each other and praise each other and welcome our audience as well.
Thank you, everyone. Beautiful words.
Oh, thanks, Carrie. That was
so great. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Susan.
Hey, Alyssa, thanks for coming.
Excellent reading.
Elmer. Renee, I love your work. I love all your work, but man, oh man, I cannot wait to dig into this anthology.
I can't wait to hear everyone. This was so beautiful. It made my Saturday. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Kari Gunter-Seymour.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kari.
So good to meet you.
Yes, it's wonderful. And soon we'll all be together, I think.